The House will be in order. Messages from the Senate, the clerk will read.
Announcing adoption of HCR 5036. The Senate adopts the Conference Committee Report on Senate Bills 84, 361, and 462, and adopts the Conference Committee Report on House Bills 2560 and 2587. The Senate adopts the Conference Committee Report on House Bills 2412 and 2164.
The Speaker recognizes Representative Adam Smith for a motion to concur on House Bill 2745. Can somebody please locate Chairman Smith? Thank you. Representative Smith, you are recognized. House Bill 2745.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My apologies. I had to call my daughter. Her 4-H heifer just had her calf, so she was pretty excited. Let's see, I better read this script here. Mr. Speaker, I make a motion to concur in conference on House or Senate sub for House Bill 2745. This is a concur, yeah. Motion to concur.
It's just a concur, Representative.
Yes, motion to concur. Sorry, folks, this is my first time. Okay, so I'll make a motion to concur to Senate substitute for House Bill 2745. This is a bill that we passed in the House back on February 26, 76 to 45. This was a property tax relief bill that really tries to put some restrictions on local governments and how much they can increase property taxes year over year in an attempt to provide some property tax relief for our Kansas citizens. I would like to probably just start with the major differences between the House position and the Senate's position on this bill. Number one, and if you're following along, I'm just going off of the supplemental notes that our research department prepared for us. The biggest, I wouldn't say the biggest change, the first change is we took in the House's version of 2745, we kind of renamed the revenue neutral rate, the revenue neutral process to a property tax estimate. We were really trying to put the focus less on the mill levy and the rate and more toward the actual tax dollars, try to make it easier to understand. The Senate committee reinstated the revenue neutral current law, the revenue neutral process. We did allow in the House version, a 3% increase over the prior year's property taxes that were levied, with some exceptions for new construction, bonds, and interest, whether they were voted on by the people or not. No fund warrants, annexed properties, economic development programs, when they expire, sometimes they get a credit for their valuation until the program is, until the property expires for eligibility from the program. Several different exclusions to that 3%. What the Senate did is they do not use the 3%, they use inflation. For our region, it's kind of the Midwest CPI, Consumer Price Index, not to exceed 3%. So if you have a property that went up 5% under the House's cap, it would be limited to, or sorry, I'm talking valuation. I'm on the wrong bill here. If a government raised their budget by 5% for property taxes, they exceeded that 3% level, it would be subject to the protest petition. Under the Senate's version, if inflation's 1%, if they exceed 1%, it's subject to the protest petition. If it's 5%, if inflation's 5%, it's limited to the 3%. Probably one of the biggest differences is in the House version, if they exceeded 3% and the protest petition was successful, let's say they were trying to get 8% budget increase, and the protest petition was successful, it knocked them back to the 3% level. In the Senate's version, if a protest petition is successful, it knocks them back to revenue neutral. So they can't spend $1 more than the prior year. That's a lot more restrictive. So in an effort to kind of balance that out, if you will, they did change the threshold for a successful protest petition. If you remember, we had a little bit of a debate when we ran this across the floor back in February. Right here in the chamber, we've had significant debates in tax committee around this very provision too. The House's version, as it left this chamber, was 5% of the voters that actually turned out and voted in the most recent Secretary of State election. The Senate's changes moved that back to 10%, but it's not of the voter turnout, it's 10% of total registered voters. So they've moved that threshold a lot higher to have a successful protest petition. One of the things they did to try to make that protest petition a little bit easier is you can sign your revenue neutral notice statement, and that's considered a valid petition. The county clerk's office, the county treasurer's office, and the county election officers, most counties, your clerk and your election officer are the same person, the same office, but all three of those offices will have public protest petitions for you to come in and sign. There was a change on the school district budgets. Currently in law, the school districts are required to have their budgets in by September 20th. Cities and counties, all your other taxing jurisdictions are October 1st, so they did move the schools also to October 1st just to have some consistency. And the last provision, the last change as compared to the House version is the House had made the property tax estimate notice permanent and mandatory whether or not any jurisdiction was exceeding the limit. And we also made permanent the reimbursement fund for the cost of printing and mailing those. The Senate's version, again, reverts back to the revenue neutral notice to where those do not have to go out unless you have a jurisdiction that is exceeding revenue neutral. And the reimbursement for those costs is not permanent. It is extended to calendar year 2031. There was one floor amendment in the Senate earlier today. It was just a technical correction. When the Senate passed it out, the provision that allowed them to sign the revenue neutral notice said that they had to be a landowner. Well, not all of your people that they make a copy of that for. You might have several people voting age in your household. You can make a copy of that form for each one of those, but not each one of those are a landowner. So it was just a technical amendment to say you had to be a registered voter to sign the notice. You didn't have to be the landowner of that property. So I think that covers the major differences in the two bills, and I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Representative Sawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the chairman did a pretty thorough job explaining the changes. I do have one question, though, to clarify. Mr. Chairman? Sorry. One thing you didn't mention, I do want to verify to make sure that the Senate did take this out, is that you didn't mention they also removed new construction. The bills that left the House allowed cities and counties to use the new construction.
Yes.
Took that out.
Yes, there are no exclusions or exemptions to that. It is strictly a look back at the dollar amount, and it's Midwest CPI, whatever inflation is. There's no adjustment for new construction, growth, bonds, any of those exclusions that the House had in.
All right, great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to make sure we had that right. This was pretty difficult to follow because even though we passed this bill some time ago, the Senate Tax Committee didn't work the bill till today. So they worked it today in Senate Tax Committee, then worked it on the Senate floor this evening. So it was a little difficult for the chairman and I to make sure everything they did to this bill. You know, I support tax lids, support trying to put a lid on the amount limits on the amount of taxes that can be levied. But you know, last year in the House, we wanted to work with cities and counties. We wanted to create a partnership to create a tax lid and work with them to help hold down property taxes. And we passed a bill out, I think it was 2396 last year to do that. And this year's version was 2745. I voted for the bill as it came out of the House. But the Senate, the changes the Senate made, I can't support this any longer. I think it's too harsh on cities, particularly we have growing areas, to not allow new construction. That's very, very difficult for cities that are growing. Like in my county, you got Derby, Mays, Goddard, those kind of places, Andover. I think it would be extremely difficult. So I can't support this any longer, but thank you.
Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chairman, as you're walking up here, I want you to know my wife just texted me, and she says that Smith guy, he seems like he works hard and really cares, but I feel sorry for him. So I just want you to know my wife feels sorry for him. I do actually have a substantive question. I didn't quite follow the last part of what you told us about revenue neutral notices and whether you have to be a citizen of the county, whether you have to be a registered voter, whether you have to be a landowner. Can you help me go through that again, just make sure I understand?
Absolutely, and I apologize. I probably butchered the description, but
No, you're doing your best. I appreciate your work.
there's a little bit of a discrepancy because the revenue neutral notices go out to property tax, they're property owners. Not every property owner is a registered voter in that jurisdiction. You might have somebody that lives in a different county but owns property in that county. That doesn't mean that they can sign it and send it back. That's not a valid signature. You have to be a registered voter in that taxing jurisdiction to be able to sign that and turn it back. Now, there may be some people that see that and they'll sign it and try to send it back in, but that signature would be invalidated because they would not be on the certified rolls, the rolls for voter rolls. That's the word I was looking for. So the amendment, the way it was written when it came out of the Senate committee, they said that you had to be a landowner. But if you do have the situation where maybe I am a resident of that, I mean, it's the property tax statement on my home, but I have 4 registered voters in my household. Maybe I'm the only person that actually owns the property, but there's a provision in here, the Senate said, well, you can take that revenue neutral notice and then you can make copies of it and then hand it out to your family members and they can sign it as well if they're a registered voter. So Senator Francisco provided that amendment to clean that up and say, if you're a registered voter, you don't have to own the property in order to be able to sign that.
But for example, if I'm a tenant, can I still sign the petition because I'm a registered voter?
Absolutely, yes.
But on the other hand, my landlord would have to be a registered voter in order to sign the neutral, whatever it is, deal.
Yes,
I think I track. I appreciate it.
thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Seeing no further discussion, you may close.
Like I said, this is my first time. I'll try not to butcher this motion. To not belabor the point, Mr. Speaker, I move adoption of Senate substitute for House Bill 20, or I already made the motion,
Yep,
so I
just
just
move, Representative.
close.
Yep, there you go.
Butchered it.
Thank you, Representative. This constitutes final action on House Bill 2745. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Members may not talk to guests along the wall at this point in time. We are on final action. Representative Owsley votes no. Representative Francis votes aye. Representative Sutton votes aye. Representative Will Carpenter votes no. Representative Essex votes aye. Representative Storm votes no. Representative Cywert votes no. Representative Potter Parshall votes no. Representative Ellis votes no. Representative Chauncey votes no. Any further explanation? For an explanation of vote? Seeing no further changes of votes. With 63 having voted in favor and 59 against the passage of House Bill 2745, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. Clerk will record the vote. The Speaker recognizes Representative Adam Smith for a motion to adopt the Conference Committee report on SCR 1603.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. SCR 1603 is a constitutional amendment to limit property tax, property valuations for the intent of some property tax relief. Again, this crossed our chamber just last week as a rolling average and went to conference. The Senate non-concurred, so we went to conference and we've been debating it all week long, trying to find a compromise. The Senate was pretty dug in not to accept any rolling average and to go back to a cap, a percent cap on the limit. So again, I'll kind of review the changes, the differences between the House position and what currently is before you right now that came out of conference. So the rolling average is gone. There is no calculation of averaging in this. This is just a annual year-to-year limit on the valuation increase. This is a limit on the assessed valuation, and it is not 3%, it is 9% or lesser as provided by law. Now, this is important because it's not a fixed 9%. It will be in the Constitution, but it can be reduced lower than that in statute should the legislature or a future legislature, should this pass on the ballot, future legislature can come in and reduce that to 8%, 7%, 5, 3, whatever they want at the time. The implementation for this was really kind of a merger between SCR 1616 and the House position. So the implementation date kind of goes back to the 1616. It's January 1st of 2027. This is on the ballot this August. Should this pass, it'll be on the primary this year. Another Senate position in 1616 was rolling the valuation back to 2022, property tax year 2022. The House's position, if you recall, when we've debated that has a pretty significant fiscal impact to the state as well as your local governments. It would cause an increase in the mill levy statewide going back to that 2022 level. The Senate was willing to move that rollback up to 2024. So we basically had 4 years. Well, once it's implemented, it'll be 5 years, but we've moved that 22 year up to 2024, which will reduce the fiscal impact of to the state of this policy. You will still see a little bit of a fiscal impact to our state general fund because of the 20 mills, and you will see a mill levy increase at the local level, even if they stay revenue neutral. Now, every local government could choose to cut their budgets back to the same 2024 levels, and that would result in a tax cut for property owners. The subclasses of real property and personal property that this applies to, it's not everybody. It's just residential homeowners, residential property, both as real property and personal property, because mobile homes are considered personal property, but they are residential property, so they do get included in this. So we're trying to take care of homeowners. We also apply this to commercial property and ag properties, and not only ag land, but also ag improvements. If you've got barns or shops or different structures on your property, those are listed in the same class as commercial property for tax purposes. There is language in the Constitution that codifies what is in statute now, that new construction, or excuse me, normal maintenance and repair cannot cause a reset in the value back up to kind of full fair market value. We did include language also that allowed the legislature to take a look at the limits on these properties. If you've had a property that's been capped for a number of years, maybe you've got a $200,000 home, but it's been under the limit and it's capped, and maybe the capped value is only worth, let's say, 150, but you want to do a $100,000 renovation to that. Statutorily, we can come back in and say, okay, 100% of that new construction will get applied to that valuation, the assessed valuation of the property, but you still get to retain the previous cap. It just allows for some flexibility. We thought that was a little clunky to put it in the statute or into the Constitution, so we just wanted to allow some flexibility in statute to do that if we wanted to, should this pass. Lastly, this is similar to what the House position was, but this is transferable. Doesn't matter who the property owner is. If it sells, the cap stays with the property. If you're a single homeowner and you own that property for 30 years, the cap stays the same. If that property sells 15 times in 30 years, that cap stays with the property. So this doesn't shift to different properties. It stays with the property. If you're a homeowner and you buy a different property, you'll have to be subject to whatever cap the other property may be subject to. As I said, it's on the August ballot, the primary ballot this year. And I think I've covered that, but I'm sure my ranking member will catch anything that I might have missed. So, Mr. Speaker, I would make a motion to adopt the conference committee report, and I will stand for questions.
Representative Sawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a long day. The chairman did a thorough job explaining the constitutional amendment. We have debated essentially this amendment, variations of it, 3 times now on the House floor, and we defeated it 3 times on the House floor. I'd urge you to defeat it again. It's a bad idea. This is not a property tax cut. It's a shift. You know, I used the analogy last time about a coupon. It's like getting a 15% off coupon, but then you go to the store to use it and all the prices went up 15%. Because when you put a cap on the values, then all the mill levies go up. So what happens is, you know, people vote for this like they're going to get a tax cut. Some people will. The people whose values went down low enough that even with the mill levy increase, they might still have a tax cut. Some people will get that. But there'll be other people, the mill levies, their values didn't go down enough to offset the huge mill levy increases. So they get a property tax increase. On the last version we had of this, Jim Howe is a county commissioner in Sedgwick County, gave me numbers from Sedgwick County with 161,000 residences, that 86,000 of them would have actually gotten an increase under 1616, with 75,000 going down. So more would have got an increase than got cut. In addition to that, when the mill levies all go up, our motor vehicle taxes are based on your countywide average mill levy. So when all those mill levies go up, your car taxes go up. So everybody's car taxes will go up. So some people, not only will their real estate taxes go up, but their car taxes will go up too. So imagine again, going in the ballot, voting for something you think is going to cut your taxes, your real estate taxes go up and your car taxes go up. So that's one really good reason to vote against this. The other thing is the inequities this causes and inequalities over time, because you'll have some properties that are under the cap, newer properties that aren't under the cap, or been under the cap for lesser parts of the time. So states like Florida that have had this cap a long time are having really big problems right now. The National Tax Foundation gave lots of examples of properties that are next to each other that have they're similar houses, similar market value, and one is paying 30 times as much property taxes as their neighbor because of the differences that causes. This causes when you put these artificial caps on, it causes big problems with the real estate markets, makes it more difficult for young people to buy homes. So it's just not a good idea. The assessment caps are like fool's gold. You're not lowering the property taxes. You're shifting things around and causing problems in your real estate market and your appraisal system. You're making the best appraisal system is the one that's fair. The whole idea is trying to get the fair market value and treat everybody fairly. This does the opposite of that. I would encourage anybody who hasn't done it. The National Tax Foundation has a great 2-minute YouTube video that explains assessment caps and why they're a bad idea. I'd encourage you to watch that. So again, I said this is a bad idea. It's a tax shift, not a tax cut. It will cause a huge increase in our car taxes. I'd urge you to vote no.
Representative Osman.
Thank you. Would the carrier of the SCR stand for a question or two? Actually, just 2 questions. Thank you. Question 1, has the Senate passed this yet?
No, this is a Senate concurrent resolution, so by the rules of how we handle conference committee stuff, it comes to the House first. If it's a Senate bill, it comes to the House first. They get to deal with it last. If it's a House bill, it goes to the Senate first, and then we get to see that last.
Okay, thank you. One other question. Is the Senate adjourned now?
I have not been paying attention to the Senate. I'm not sure. I think they are.
I think that they are as well. All right, thank you.
Representative Blex.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the carrier stand for a question? Yes, sir. I
Yes,
have a
sir.
question. When the cap comes on, you mentioned ag land. What is going to happen to that 8-year rolling average that we're currently under now? Could you explain that for me?
The formula, the use value that ag uses right now, nothing changes with that. That number is not determined at the local level. They get that number as a report from Key State and all the research data. They get that number, and then that number will simply have that 9% limit applied to it. If it's going up 3%, it'll go up 3%. If it says go down 2%, it goes down. But if ag land, if that calculation shows that ag land's going up 20%, which it typically does when it's back on the upswing, it will be limited to 9%. And so it will kind of provide a buffer similar to residential or commercial property. If it goes up over 9%, it will be limited to the 9% only.
Okay, thank you for that, and thank you for all your hard work.
Representative Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the carrier would stand for a question or two. So on a constitutional amendment, there's always an explanation that appears on the ballot. So you have the explanation right there. There it is. I can't use props, so I can't show it. Oh, yeah, since I'm not the speaker, I guess he can show it. How long you been the chairman of the tax committee?
This is my 6th year.
Do you understand this?
Unfortunately, yes.
Do you think the average Joe or Jane would understand this?
You know, if you read, and this is, by the way, if you're looking at the supplemental, or not the supplemental notes, the CCRB, the brief for the conference committee report, it does have this explanatory statement in it. The first part of it, it looks really convoluted, but as you read through it, you know, it's defining what property it applies to. It's defining what some of the exceptions to the limit might be. And then the bottom part is explaining the kind of the rollback. It's going back to 2024. You do have to take it word for word and try to understand it. If somebody waits until they go to the polls to try to understand this, it's probably going to be a little difficult.
Would it be fair to say that you're a tax nerd?
Probably. Yes.
Would it be fair to say that somebody who is not a tax nerd is going to read this and understand it?
No comment.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot like you had a choice. Nobody's going to understand this. We're just not. I urge you to vote this down.
Representative Corbett.
Thank you, colleagues. We're arguing about something that is really none of our business. What would be worse than not voting this out was not to have anything for our people to vote on this year. Pass this out of here and let them make the choice. They're paying the taxes. Give them a chance. Let them vote.
Seeing no further, Speaker recognizes Speaker Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I had a speech in caucus a while ago in calendar, and certainly I wanted to talk to the whole body because I think you have the two best tax guys in this state. We have a fantastic tax chair, and we have a fantastic ranking member, both who work together on a constant basis. Those guys are together all the time working on taxes. The previous speaker talked about being a tax nerd. Yeah, I think they are tax nerds. But they're darn good tax nerds. They do know what they're doing. You know, this has been a tough week in a lot of ways. We started out this week with a big meeting. The majority leaders and speaker and Senate president and tax chairs on both sides. We thought we knew where this week was going to go. Didn't work out that way very well. Certainly, the last 2 days have been very difficult, especially for the conference committees. A lot of things have been said. Been said that the House doesn't negotiate in good faith. That is absolutely not true. And anybody that's watching today on this video, it is not true. Our conference committee, our tax people have negotiated in great faith. There were other things that were said. I don't need to go over that. But I can tell you, I will put my tax committee up against anybody. That tax committee comes together and works together all during a session. They're all serious people, but they're led by 3 great people: our tax chair, our ranking member, and our vice chair. They're the best. And everybody should know that they've got the best. You know, it's hard to get agreement with 125 people. It's damn hard to get agreement with 165 people. God knows they've tried. They have tried. They've tried really hard. I also know how important it is to the people across this state to get property tax relief. There isn't a single one of us that doesn't hear it day in and day out. It is the one item that I get every day in emails from my district, and I get it across the state. And certainly if you go to social media, you'll see on my social media them tearing us up, tearing me up, because we haven't gotten tax relief. Well, it's not because we haven't tried. And why is it the last day? Hell, why is it always the last day on taxes? You've been here 30 years. Is it always the last day? Sometimes it's June. Yeah, I can remember being in here in June 10th, still working on taxes or budget. It is one of those things that just seems to always be the toughest thing to get done, because you got to get agreement on both sides. We've had a lot of tax votes. That's the one thing that I've probably been really disappointed in, is that we have had tax votes in here. And we sent a lot of tax bills over the other side. I don't have to tell you how many votes. You all know. But we're going to have another one tonight. And I do agree with the last speaker. We need to do something. We need to go home. All of us need to be able to go home and say that we have a tax bill, a tax constitutional amendment. There is 100,000 reasons to vote against something. Heck, budget's one of the easiest things to vote against. You can find something in a budget you don't like. Well, you can darn sure find a lot in a tax bill you don't like. Our people don't understand that. When you tell them that you didn't get anything, why not? Because there's 125 of us and 40 on the other side. So we have an opportunity tonight to get what we need to get. Is it the best? No. But it's probably a long ways from the best. But our people are wanting something. 9% the best place we could be? I would say it's probably not the place we want to be. But we get something. I hope we make a good decision here tonight, and whatever decision is made, I'm good with that. Because each one of you have a vote that you get to own. It's your vote, it's not my vote. I get my vote. I've voted for every tax bill we've done this year, and I'm going to vote for this one. You make up the decision whether you're going to vote for it. But I respect you for that, because each one of us represents a district. And I know every one of you comes here to do the best you can for your district. Not a one of you come up here to do anything but the best you can for your district. I am proud of the House. I'm proud of everybody in this house. This house, I have said for a long time, is the best house I've ever seen. Do we get argued? Do we get a fuss and fight? Sure we do. But we come together and do a lot of good things. You always have. This last 2 years has been a great year. And tonight's the last night for first adjournment. And we're still here. And we'll be here just a little bit longer, because you all are serious people and you're here to get stuff done. So thank you for being here. Thank you for this debate tonight and all day today. It's been a long day, and we got a little bit longer to go. Thank you for what you do. Make your decision, and then let's move forward and get her done. Thanks, body.
Representative, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. Body, there's no way to follow that. I echo his sentiments exactly. There's 125 of us in here, and there's probably 125 different opinions on what a perfect tax bill would look like in the form of a resolution or a constitutional amendment. I hope that this truly was an effort, a labor of love with my ranking and my vice chair to try to find compromise. And this was what the result was. So, Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the conference committee report on SCR 1603.
This constitutes final action on SCR 1603. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Hoheisel votes no. Any further changes? Seeing none. With 59 having voted in favor and 63 against the passage of SCR 1603, the same having not received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared lost. The clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Having voting on the prevailing side, I move pursuant to House Rule 2303 that the House reconsider its previous action of not adopting the conference committee report on SCR 1603 and the resolution be returned to that order of business, conference committee reports.
For debate, Representative Sawyer.
I just rise in support of this motion. I think it's important to save the shell. We want to keep working on property tax relief. So we need to support the motion to reconsider so we can send it back to conference and we can keep working. Thank you.
Representative Adam Smith. Please note that you also have 1 minute to discuss this.
I'll be even quicker than that. I support what the ranking member said. We do not have any resolutions. We have to have some bills in conference. We don't have a resolution. If we want to try to move forward with this, we've got to save this. So I'd encourage you to support this motion, please.
Seeing no further discussion, Representative, would you like to close?
I close.
You've heard the motion. Let me clarify. If you vote yes on this, that means that it brings it back to the floor for us to have a conversation with on the CCR or on the resolution. If you vote no, then the action that we just took would be final. You've heard the motion by the representative. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Speaker recognizes Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I make a substitute motion to not adopt the conference committee report and a new conference committee be appointed.
For discussion, the Speaker recognizes Representative Sawyer.
And I rise in support of this motion so we can send this back to committee, have our shell, and continue to work for property tax.
Seeing no further discussion, you may close.
I close.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The motion passes. The Speaker appoints Representatives Adam Smith, Turner, and Sawyer as conferees on part of the House. Speaker recognizes Representative Humphreys for a motion to adopt the Conference Committee report on House Bill 2357. Proceed, Representative.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, body, this is House Bill 2357. That bill, as amended, creates and amends law related to eviction proceedings for rental agreements subject to the Residential Landlord and Tenant Act. It requires expungement of certain court records. It allows the landlord to object to an expungement request and authorizes consideration of mediation for most eviction actions. This bill started out large, and we have pared it down so that stakeholders, landlords, and tenants are happy with the action that we've taken. And Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the Conference Committee report on House Bill 2357, and I'll stand for questions.
Representative Osman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The bill is good.
Representative, you may close.
I close.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2357. The clerk will open the roll. You may record to vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none. With 100, Representative Potter Parshall votes no. Any other changes? Seeing none. With 118 having voted in favor and 3 against the passage of House Bill 2357, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. Clerk will record the vote. The Speaker recognizes Representative Humphreys for a motion to adopt the Conference Committee report on House Bill 2521.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 2521 is the bill that takes child welfare agencies in Kansas and puts them under the Kansas Tort Claims Act. Right now, child welfare providers are facing unsustainable increases in their liability insurance, often 100 to 200% or more, even when the claims haven't increased. It doesn't increase state liability. It does not provide immunity to the child welfare providers. It simply ensures that claims are handled under the Kansas Tort Claims Act, consistent with other governmental partners. They are doing government work as contractors with the state. I think with that, Mr. Speaker, I will move to adopt the Conference Committee report on House Bill 2521.
Representative Osman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This bill is bad. And I wish that we could just, I wish that I could make a motion to just adjourn because that would be the easiest solution here. This is a very bad bill. Effectively, what it is doing, and I've explained this before, but what this is doing is saying for the child care placement agencies, they want to limit their liability to $500,000. But children can die. Children have died. Children have been maimed. And the claims for those are in the tens of millions of dollars. And when we heard the testimony in judiciary, they didn't dispute the fact that claims are in the tens of millions of dollars. They never disputed the fact that these claims are warranted. All they said was, we don't wish to pay that amount. Our insurance is going up. There are legal mechanisms to remove yourself from liability and from the court case itself. There are methods to do so, and that is the method that they should be doing. Instead, what they are doing is coming to the legislature and saying, our insurance rates are going up, we can't afford it, so we want to cap our damages. That doesn't help the children. You can't come to the legislature for a fix that there is a solution already in law, and you can't do an end run around your responsibility. Please vote no on this legislation. Thank you.
Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise in opposition to HB 2521. This bill has real victims, and those victims are children. And those children are amongst the most vulnerable children in our society. Those children sometimes, while they are in the care or through the placement of these agencies, and because of negligence on the part of these private corporations, nonprofit corporations, but large nonprofit corporations, become the victims of sexual abuse. They're scarred for life. This bill says those children, unlike the rest of us who are done wrong, have a very limited recourse. It's $500,000. These agencies may have problems. These agencies may need to change some of their procedures so that kids don't get hurt. These agencies may need to implement some risk management policies. But to just say that our insurance is going up and so we want to victimize children, that is wrong, and I cannot support this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Clearly, we care about children. So just let's get that out there. Because right now, we have had 30 to 40 child placing agencies in the state. We're down to 11 because of this situation. This is going to help children. This is not going to hurt the children. The 500,000 is not the limit if it's a sexual assault issue. These cost pressures do continue to strain and threaten the capacity of our providers that are serving our Kansas children. This bill is about stabilizing the system so that they can continue. We want to keep children safe and support families and in partnership. This is a group of organizations that are doing government work. A lot of other groups also under our Kansas Tort Claims Act. Very similar situation. This is helping stabilize our child welfare across the state. And with that, I'll close and ask you to vote to move House Bill 2521. Thank you.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2521. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Brownlee Page votes no. Representative Woodard votes no. Representative Meyer votes no. Any further changes? Seeing none, with 83 having voted in favor and 38 against the passage of House Bill 2521, the same have received a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. Clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes Representative Laura Williams for a motion to adopt the Conference Committee report on House Bill 2651.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, so House Bill 2561 has come to you before, and it was in the form of House Bill 2610, which makes two key changes to current law. First, it streamlines prosecutorial power with what's already on statute for magistrates, which is allows for summons to be issued for misdemeanors and warrants for felonies. And it also changes where if you fail to appear on a summons there and a warrant is issued, it must be issued with a surety or a cash bond, and a signature bond or own recognizance bond would not be accepted in that case. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the Conference Committee report.
Representative Osman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and happy Saturday, body. We're here at 12:01 on a Saturday morning, debating a bill that Judiciary had, by my count, 300,000 committee meetings. And this one snuck in at the last minute. We found a shell through a shell factory and just slid right in. And now 2610 is now 2651. This is a bill so bad, the Senate didn't even want to work it. The Senate doesn't even care about this bill. Who cares about this bill? The bond industry. It is a giveaway to the bond industry. They're going to make so much money off of this. Who doesn't like this bill? Pretty much everybody else. It eliminates judicial discretion. It eliminates freedom for individuals. It is going to hurt individuals. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. You get arrested, you get put in jail, you can be released under a normal schedule of an ROR bond. That's a release on your own recognizance. That means you come back later, and as long as you come back, you're all good during as you go through the trial system. But the way that this is set up is that you need to have a judge sign off on things. If the judge is not available, you're spent, and you can't afford the bond that has been set up by the bond industry, you're stuck in jail. You're stuck in jail overnight. If you can't afford the bond, whatever that bond may be now, instead of an ROR bond, and you're out there on a Friday night, you're stuck in jail the rest of the weekend. That's going to have long-term ramifications for you, for your family, for your employment. Imagine you have to work on a Saturday and Sunday, and under the current system, you're released on an ROR. But you now can't afford whatever the bond is, and the judge isn't going to be available until Monday afternoon. So you're just spending the weekend in jail for no reason other than the bond industry wanted some more money. It is no wonder the Senate didn't care about this bill, and didn't want this bill, and didn't work this bill. I would highly recommend following the Senate's lead as they were working through the committee process and ignoring this bill as well by pressing the no button. Thank you.
Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to HB 2651, or the conference committee report. First thing I need to do is, I did misspeak a moment ago. I had forgotten that we got rid of the $500,000 cap on sexual assault claims under the Kansas Tort Claims Act. I apologize for my error. I could have and should have used the examples of tortured children, children fed to pigs, etc. But I misspoke, and so I want to apologize for folks for that. It was not my intention to mislead. I appreciate your indulgence. Now, I need to talk about this quite seriously with you, and I'm sorry, I know some of you are already fallen asleep, but we didn't really have all of the facts at the time we voted on this bill. It passed the committee of the whole back on February 17, final action February 18, passed 88 to 36. But I have to take a few moments to, in the words of Paul Harvey, tell you the rest of the story. This bill was filed February 2 of 2026. That's when it was introduced. It was introduced by our vice chair, the carrier of the bill. It was immediately referred to the House Judiciary Committee, and it was heard literally the next day on February 3. The only conferees or witnesses to appear before the House Judiciary Committee were the carrier of the bill, and I think it was Mr. Williams of the Bail Bondsmen's Association. The bill was not requested by Kansas law enforcement. It was not requested by the Sheriff's Association. It was not requested by the district attorneys. It was requested by the representative, and the only expert, if you will, that testified in front of the committee was the bail bondsman. Nobody testified from the prosecutors. Nobody testified from the Sheriff's Association. Nobody testified from the Board of Indigent Defense Services. Nobody testified from the ACLU. I can go on and on and on. So, based upon the only evidence we had, the testimony of two witnesses, the committee favorably reported the bill. So the hearing was February 3rd. A week later, February 10, it passed out of the committee without any amendments. A week later, it arrived on the House floor, passed the committee of the whole, final action the next day, February 18, 88-36. The bill went to the Senate. The Senate, unlike the House Judiciary Committee, gave ample notice to proponents and opponents of the bill. And so on February 3rd, which would have been 2 to 3 weeks after our final action, the Senate held a hearing on this bill in the Senate Judiciary Committee. And now's when I need to tell you about the rest of the story. The rest of the story is the Kansas Sheriff's Association Now knowing about the bill, remember this bill was introduced one day, heard the next in the House. The Kansas Sheriff's Association showed up for the hearing. And they showed up as what's described on the record, I think, as an opponent, but they may also have been a neutral. Their testimony was provided by Sheriff Jeff Easter of Sedgwick County. I think many of you know Sheriff Easter. He appears here quite frequently. And I need you to bear with me because you didn't know what the Sheriff's Association's position on this bill was when you last voted. To summarize as best and as quickly as I can, the Sheriff's Association's written testimony, they started out by telling us the Kansas Sheriff's Association does not support HB 2610. That's the principal bill. We're now in the shell. But the Sheriff's Association does not support the bill. And then they start going page and line to explain why the Sheriff's Association does not support the bill. They said a summons, the new language states, a summons shall not be issued instead of a warrant in the case of a complaint alleging commission of a felony. What did the Sheriff's Association say about that? They said this language will require the district attorney or county attorney to only issue a warrant for all felonies. This would include all low-level felonies with first offenses. This language will cause more individuals to be booked into jail and possibly stay longer in our custody. We ask that this language be struck from the bill. The language hasn't been struck from the bill. Sheriff Easter, though, went on. And then he turned to the testimony at line 25 on page 1. Says, if a defendant fails to appear in response to summons, a warrant shall issue, and any bond set on such warrant shall not allow release on the defendant's own recognizance. The question we have, according to Sheriff Easter, is, has any research been conducted throughout the state on how many summonses have been issued on both felony and misdemeanor crimes to determine if a large number of citizens are not responding to summonses to appear in court? Kansas Sheriff's Association does not believe this is a systemic problem that needs this type of fix. And by the way, that research that Sheriff Easter asked about, it was never presented in either the House or the Senate committee hearing. Now, I'm sorry, but this is important because it also gets worse. Sheriff Easter goes on to say, currently, jails are experiencing overcrowding, mainly due to heinous felony cases with suspects in jail awaiting trial. This is the population that needs to be in our jails. We don't believe a person who has been arrested for urinating in public, did not come to court on a summons, then is arrested for failure to appear and placed in our jails now with a bond, should be occupying space in our jails. Judges already have the ability to currently see individuals' past record, previous conduct, and if they fail to appear in prior incidents and determine if a bond should be placed on them or a recognizance bond will suffice. And then he talks about the bed impact on his jail, which is full. I'm sorry that some of you have other business to conduct tonight and find that my presentation is humorous. This is serious business. I ask that you pay attention. The other important testimony that the Senate Judiciary Committee received that the House did not receive because there was no effective notice so that the district attorneys could come and talk to us about this bill was from Mark Bennett. Mr. Bennett is the district attorney of Sedgwick County. Many of you know him because for the past several years, he was the legislative liaison for the District Attorneys Association. He no longer holds that position. But what he says is, again, to abbreviate, thank you for the opportunity to address you regarding House Bill 2616. While I understand and even share some of the concerns that motivate the proponents of this bill, I cannot support it as written. No changes have been made to the bill. That means that our district attorney in Sedgwick County is saying, I cannot support this bill. Now, he goes on to talk about offering what he describes as neutral testimony to provide context on how these decisions are made. This becomes important. He says each year, our office files between 2,500 and 3,000 adult felony cases. Last year, we issued a summons, and a summons is rather than a warrant, and a summons doesn't come with a bond requirement, in roughly a third of those cases. In our county, the decision to whether to issue a summons or request a warrant is within our office's discretion. In other words, it's the DA's discretion. He says, so without any other consideration, this bill would obligate our sheriff and other law enforcement to serve approximately 800 to 1,000 additional warrants just in Sedgwick County. This is a sheriff's office who's dealing with all kinds of crime, serious felons, and this bill would cause them to have to stop pursuing criminals and go out and serve an additional 800 to 1,000 warrants on people who are not a danger to the public. But there's more. He goes on to describe that a low-level felony may deserve a warrant if the offender has a significant history, or if there's something about the nature of the felony that increases the risk to the public. Meanwhile, a person who is charged with something more severe, but who has no prior history, retain counsel and promise to appear on a future date, might be given a chance to do so. He says cases that we anticipate to be presumptive probation often begin via a summons, as incarcerating someone is destabilizing and might actually exacerbate the circumstances that lead to their flight or recidivism. According to DA Bennett, simply put, no two cases are alike, and a bill that requires a murder case to begin in the same manner as a felony theft is contrary to that reality. Now, the sheriff goes on for another 2-3 paragraphs expressing other problems with this bill, none of which have been fixed. And he concludes, again, I can appreciate the proponent's frustration with some offenders being treated too softly despite facing serious charges. However, the current bill's language swings the pendulum too far the other way and will unnecessarily contribute to jail overcrowding and stressing law enforcement resources by requiring them to apprehend thousands of offenders who currently are coming to court voluntarily. After the Senate Judiciary Committee heard this testimony, the rest of the story that we did not hear in the House when we made our decision, the Senate Judiciary Committee did not even work the bill. They placed it in the committee's garbage can. They never voted on it in the Senate. And now this bill that is described by the Sheriff's Association as a bill that they oppose, a bill that the district attorney says he opposes, is now here for us to approve. What in the world are we doing, my friends? I urge you to heed the counsel of the Kansas Sheriff's Association and vote no on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Seeing no further discussion, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will just state that the Senate did pass this out just a little bit ago with that, all of that information, 28 to 12. But I do want to close with this. When we were drafting up this legislation and working on making sure that our laws are more accountable and transparent to ensuring that defendants appear in court and there's accountability there, we have a very specific case of where we see this play out and the negative consequences that happen from this. And you've heard this with House Bill 2444, but the tragic story of the KU student who was jogging one evening and was struck by a drunk driver and was killed and left for someone to come and find her body. William Klinger was initially given a summons in Douglas County for his felony DUI. He failed to appear on that. He was given a PR bond. He failed to appear on that. He was given a surety bond, and he failed to appear on that. The bondsman had him back in 4 days. Then he was given another PR bond and was out on that PR bond when he struck a pre-med student who had a bright future ahead of her just while she was out jogging and living her life. So I think as we look at the impact you all get to make at this late hour, I will say, you have one that you get to be able to go and protect your community and fight for transparency and accountability. And with that, I close.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2651. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, with 72 having voted in favor and 48 against the passage of House Bill 2651, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. Clerk will record the vote. The Speaker recognizes Representative Turk for a motion to adopt the Conference Committee report on House Bill 2560.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, HB 2560, be a nice little layup for us. All right, this one will authorize the sale of property on behalf of Kansas State University and amend statute to exempt state educational institutions from certain statutes upon the promulgation of policy by the state education institutions and the subsequent approval by the Kansas Board of Regents. This includes statutes concerning the execution of contracts, procurement of goods and services, transactions involving easements, the disposition of surplus property, establishment of hospitality limitations, and participation in the Kansas Quality Program. What we did here is Senate had a change on 2560, which was a date change and adjustment. We figured out why. It made sense. We moved on. We added the procurement bill. They had 2 amendments that brought everyone that was involved in the conversations and negotiations on board. This particular piece of bipartisan legislation has no opponents. We had Tabor come on board. We had, heck, we even had the architects come on board. This is a nice little kumbaya piece of legislation. And with that, I move we adopt the conference committee report.
Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a good bill. A lot of work done on this by the chairman and others, especially to be able to bring everybody to the table on this. I would encourage a positive vote on this. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative, you may close.
I close.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2560. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has everybody had the opportunity to record their vote? Are you going to be okay, Representative? As every member had the opportunity to record their vote, the clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, with 120 having voted in favor and 0 against the passage of House Bill 2560, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. Clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes Representative Proctor for a motion to adopt the conference committee report on House Bill 2587.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So before I begin, this will be the last bill that I carry on the floor. I'm sure I'll be back for the veto session up here with one or two. But I wanted to take this opportunity first to thank the Speaker for the opportunity to serve the people of Kansas in this role as Chairman of the Elections Committee. I also want to thank my Vice Chair and my ranking minority member before he starts tearing apart my bill. And also want to thank the incredible staff, especially Cheryl Dew, our committee assistant, Elena and Jillian, Mike and Jason, great folks. It's been an honor to serve with all of you. So House Bill 2587 contains the contents of House Bill 2448. And you'll remember we passed that bill in this chamber. It does two things. It requires that the Department of Revenue put the citizenship status on any newly issued driver's licenses. And then it requires that if a person shows up at the polls to vote with a non-citizen ID that shows the person to be a non-citizen, that if they insist that they're a citizen, they're eligible to vote, they be given a provisional ballot. And then they have to come in and, with a U.S. passport or a naturalization certificate to indicate that they're a citizen. I'll say a few things up front. There's an email that's gone out. I've got it several times. Nobody has to go get a new driver's license because of this bill. This only applies when your driver's license expires to renewing your driver's license and getting a new driver's license. I've also in that email, it says now everybody has to come in and provide documents to prove they're a citizen to get a driver's license. I don't know when is the last time you got a driver's license, but you already have to do that. You have to show up with a birth certificate or a U.S. passport, and if you're a non-citizen, foreign passport and proof that you're in the country legally. So this creates no additional requirements to get a driver's license. It creates no additional requirements to vote unless you show up with a non-citizen driver's license and try to vote. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the Conference Committee report on House Bill 2587.
Representative Haskins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This time I hope I can get out without ruffling up the whole chamber here. Let's talk about this bill, the CCR. Before I begin on a positive note, I want to thank the chair and the vice chair. We have a lot of fun in elections. It's very exciting, and they make my days more exciting on Tuesday and Thursday than any other day, and I thank you for that. But I also want to thank my hounds, my strong women on my caucus who have always kept me honest and do a really good job just making life special. So I thank you for that. Love you too. And don't get jealous, Mr. Speaker. I still love you. All right. So the bill was 2448 when the last time you heard it. 2448, it cleared this chamber 77-41. It wasn't a slam dunk. Again, this bill was not even picked up in committee on the Senate side. And I believe there's reason for this. One is during the conference committee, the Senate vice chair refused to vote on it. She just viewed this as a bad bill. And so she voluntarily removed herself from the conference committee so this can advance, and they replaced her. I think that is telling and something that we should not ignore. But I don't want to take a lot of the time because I've been up here many many minutes today. So I just want to wrap up with a few things. The other day, a couple days ago, I stood up here and I actually said, an election bill is fine. Please support it. And when I sat down, I had 38 people vote against me. Majority of them came from my own caucus. And I thought to myself, what did I do wrong? I mean, it's like, did I not deliver the fine as well as my colleague from Johnson County? But then I was informed that there was something I didn't understand. And that was, the bill actually dealt with some oppression issues about land that I historically didn't know about, and I didn't understand. And you see, I don't understand what it's like to be a woman, a trans. I don't understand what it's like to be Black or a non-citizen. I do understand what it's like to be a white male. And we've had it pretty good with this. And I want you to think about this from a different perspective. A driver's license is going to have a marker saying you are a non-citizen. The argument for that is because it's going to be more efficient when they go to the clerk and they register to vote, or if they actually cast a vote. Ask yourself, how many times have you used your driver's license? You use your driver's license to open up a checking account. You use your driver's license to get a mortgage. You use your driver's license to buy a car. You use your driver's license to get an apartment. In today's environment, do we really think it's the appropriate time to put a marker to say, hey, you're not really a Kansan? You're not a citizen of Kansas? I think this bill speaks for itself that it's bad. I ask you to not think of yourself, but think of who this will harm. It will harm Kansans as well as those that are here to work, that are legally here to work, that are non-citizens. The last thing I will say, that even the Senate chair on the conference committee said, you know what, this will have other advantages too. You know, if the police pull someone over, they can quickly see if they're a citizen or not. Of course, they could see without, but they could see it on the license whether they're a citizen or not. To me, that's telling. That's social profiling. And that's the reason why we don't need to harm citizens, non-citizens. Allow them to vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Vote no on this. And good night.
Representative, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When the former Secretary of State, Chris Kobach, fought very hard to get a law passed that said you have to have documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote, and it was struck down in court, the judge told us you can't do it on the front end because the MVRA says you can't. So until the Save America Act gets passed, we can't check proof of citizenship on the front end when somebody registered to vote. And what the judge told us is you got to do it on the back end. You got to scrub the voter rolls to make sure that folks there are no non-citizens on the voter rolls. And then here we are, the last line of defense, that poll worker checking that voter ID can look at the ID and see if that person's a non-citizen or not. It's exactly what the courts told us that we should do to solve this problem. And I encourage you to vote for this bill. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, I close on my motion.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2587. Clerk will open the roll. You may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Members will be in their seats. Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none. With 77 having voted in favor and 42 against the passage of House Bill 2587, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. Clerk will record the vote. The Speaker recognizes Representative Berquist for a motion to concur in conference on House Bill 2099.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I come before you with a proposal for, I move that the House concur in conference with Senate substitute for HB 2099. Senate substitute for 2099 would authorize the Secretary of Corrections, State of Kansas, for and on behalf of the Department of Corrections and the State of Kansas to convey 57 acres of land by quitclaim deed to Leavenworth County, Kansas. You all have heard this before one time, and maybe this will be the last. The legal description of the parcel is provided in the bill. The bill would direct Leavenworth County to pay all the costs related in any way to the conveyance. And the conveyance would then not be subject to any appraisal requirements in continuing law. So I move that motion and I stand for questions.
Is there discussion? Speaker recognizes Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The chair did a fine job explaining the bill. I am going to support it, but I will have to say I had to calm down my paranoia when I heard Leavenworth, prison, land transfer. But I really think that's just being paranoid. And since we're about ready to adjourn soon, I'm going to try to turn over a new leaf and just trust the process.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Berquist, you may close.
Like a number of other chairs have said, I've actually enjoyed being chair this year. I've enjoyed being chair the last few years. I'm planning on sticking around a little while longer unless it sounds like I'm doing a swan song or something. So, Mr. Speaker, I move my motion.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2099. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The roll is still open. The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Laura Williams voted present, but she wants to vote aye now. Any further changes of vote? Seeing none, 113 voting in favor and 4 against the passage of House Bill 2099, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Okay, are there any announcements? Seeing none, Speaker has an announcement. You'll just have to hold on a second. You know, colleagues, I want to thank you for a very full and challenging and fulfilling week. We have worked hard every day. We've done a great job. We've had some long nights, but we've stuck in there together and we've really done the state great work. And I appreciate every one of you and your service to this state. So I look forward to seeing you again here in about 12, 13 days. Be safe while you're home. And with that, Speaker recognizes the majority leader for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hey, real quick, I know we're ready to get out of here. If you're too tired to drive, look out for each other. Like, I'm serious about this, right? Don't let somebody drive if they're too tired, okay? This is a very serious deal. Let's look out for each other. We've come too far. We've hung too strong. So thank you again for everybody for being here, hanging out and getting this thing done tonight and doing the people's work. One team. Mr. Speaker, I move the House adjourn until Thursday, April 9th at 10 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.